As BCBAs, we've all written behavior plans that look great on paper, only to realize that no one's actually using them. And the missing piece is that behavior plan buy-in. In this episode, we're talking about how to move beyond just writing technically sound plans and start creating strategies that parents, teachers, and teams actually follow, because real change only happens when everyone's on board. Hi, I'm Shira.
And I'm Shayna. We're behavior analysts who create weekly content about how to teach children with autism so that they make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little easier. Today's topic is all about behavior plan buy-in. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases.
I have a cookbook that I bought a couple years ago because the recipes looked really interesting. And I really thought that the person who wrote the cookbook was a really great cook. And so I was really intrigued. And so I bought this cookbook, and the recipes are probably really good, but I haven't made most of them because they're a little bit too complex for me. I don't have those ingredients. I don't even know where to get saffron and things like that. And so I didn't even bother. And it could be the best recipe, but if I never actually pull that book out because it's not easy for me to follow that kind of recipe, I'm never even going to try to make those kind of recipes. And a behavior plan is similar.
You're a way better person than I am even attempting to buy a cookbook. For those of you who know me, I am not a cook at all. It's like, what can I pull out of my freezer that's frozen and heat it up right now? Or can someone else get something for me? That would be great. So good for you for attempting. But you're right. Like it's exactly like a behavior plan. You can write the best behavior plan in the world, but A, if it's too technical, no one's reading it. Or B, if it's too long, someone's going to go, okay, whoa, 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 like you've lost me after the first or second page. So what do we do about that? Let's chat about that today.
Yeah, and I think we've all been there because we really put so much time and effort and energy into writing the best plans, right? One of our core foundations of our field is being technical or technological. And we'll write the best plans and then find that they're kind of untouched or applied inconsistently. And besides for it being frustrating for us as the BCBA, it really doesn't help the learner because they're not able to make progress if everyone isn't fully invested in that process.
Yeah, and we need to figure out what we define as success, right? And maybe we need to reframe what our definition of success is, right? Like we might think, oh, it's the perfect plan, but perfect doesn't matter if it's not usable. Perfect is great, but it's not usable, period. So buy-in is really what we need. And to me, buy-in is perfect. That's the perfection and that's the success. If everyone's bought into the plan, if everyone's following the plan, then it's successful. So we need to really, bridge that gap between the science and the real world results. And it's hard because, as BCBAs, we say, well, from a science standpoint, the data show that this, and if we could only do this, but we know that in the real world, not everybody can follow through with that. So we actually need probably like collaboration, over compliance to the plan. Everybody needs to buy in. So there might be some things that we have to let go of our perfect plan.
So I think we're saying don't aim for perfection. It's not our goal. Aim for something that is usable.
Don't tell your teachers, don't tell grad teachers this. I'm just
Right.
kidding.
Hint, we're not perfect. So one of the things that we say very often is do not use technical language. So yeah, so our plan has to be technological because somebody can actually look at it and follow it. Those directions should not be given in jargon heavy language. So don't use words like differential reinforcement or extinction or things that might sound overwhelming to non-BCBAs. I can't tell you how many times I get this feedback, even from people who are in the field, who work with our kids often, and who just don't understand when a BCBA is referencing shaping differential reinforcement over desired behaviors over undesired behaviors. And they're like, well, what do I actually do when he flops to the floor? And I think we have to get really practical and really simple about how we're phrasing the things that we're putting in that plan.
Absolutely. Those overly complex procedures can also be difficult, right? If the plan takes too many steps or it's not realistic for, say, a busy classroom teacher or even at home for a parent, it won't happen. So the first thing that I do when I'm thinking about implementing a plan is I interview the teacher, I look at the environment, or I talk to the parent and, see how many kids that parent has, see what their workload is like, and, really think about, is this doable? And while, a behavior plan might be amazing and might be doable if you're doing one-to-one ABA therapy, it's not always doable in a classroom of even 5 or 10 or 20 kids. It's not doable sometimes. So we need to look at those procedures and go, okay, what is doable and what is less complex?
And the same way we've become experts at shaping client behavior, we're essentially shaping staff behavior also. So we have to think about that in picking the first few things that are going to be the most effective, that can be successful, and then move on from there. And one of the most common mistakes that can be made is that it's not addressing this most pressing concern. And that's going to feel irrelevant, right? The staff and the teachers need to access reinforcement quickly also, because negative reinforcement is going to be high. And we need to think about what's in it for them to change their behavior, if there isn't going to be immediate reinforcement for them. So pick the most pressing concern that you can get the most traction with, and that will feel really relevant for that teacher or caregiver.
Usually, when I write a behavior plan, the very first thing I do is ask what goals are. So if the learner is able to tell me, I ask the student themselves, what are your goals? What do you want? If they're not able to tell me, then I go to caregivers and I go to teachers. What are your goals? Because I have my own goals. I've done an assessment. Here's my goals. But if those goals aren't the same as other people's goals, they're not going to implement my goals if I don't have that buy-in. So we need to look at what other people's goals are as well.
And in addition to goals, I think also thinking about their values. So
Mhm.
what is the environment and what is the context that you're going into? And if your behavior plan is, suggesting a high level of support, but their value is that they function in a classroom setting, or that they're not going to use prompting, or whatever the value is in the place that you're going to, you have to take that into account to make this feel more collaborative, and not, impose on them to act in a way that's, not aligned with their values.
Yeah, another reason people don't buy into a behavior plan is if it's too long. And I actually fell into this trap last week. And look, I'm a seasoned BCBA. I'm telling you, don't write a behavior plan that's too long. And my behavior plan was way too long. And I got feedback from the group home manager, and I'm so happy I got that feedback. Essentially, we've been given these forms and these templates and say, fill in this template, and this is this is the template you need to follow. And it's great, except for the fact that the template has a whole bunch of jargon in it. It's like ministry requirements and all that kind of stuff. So, you get to filling this in, and then all of a sudden you've got a behavior plan that's 20 pages long, and you've, fulfilled these requirements that you need to do. But as the group home manager said to me, Shayna, like, no one's going to read this. And I completely agreed. So, we had that behavior plan, the formal one, that got filed, and that was the one that was on record, I guess you could say. And then what I did is I pulled out the key points of the behavior plan and I made some one pagers. And it was a one pager. We laminated it and we put it in the floor supervisor's office and got all the staff trained on that one pager. And that's how we were able to take that ministry guideline behavior plan and keep it. But it was a one pager of here's what to do. I actually had two pagers because I had a one page and it was here's all the antecedent strategies. It didn't even call them antecedent strategies. I called it proactive strategies. And I was like, here's some proactive strategies you can do. And then on the back, I had, and here's some strategies that you can do in the moment if the behavior happens. And that's what it was. And it was all in point form in big font.
So I think that's a great strategy for how to make them more user friendly. Pull out, make a cheat sheet, post it in a place that's easily visible for everybody. And I would also recommend keeping it simple by only choosing like 2 or 3 actionable goals at a time. We know that often our kids who are needing a behavior plan need a lot of skill development, and they may be lacking a whole bunch of skills. But I would recommend choosing like the 2 or 3 most important ones. They're often going to be related to communication and some form of tolerance, because once you can communicate and tolerate, so many more things are open and available to you. But pick those things that are going to, make the biggest impact to the staff, that they see that this is going to be effective and that it doesn't feel overwhelming.
Think about those replacement goals, right? So when I used to think of behavior plans, I used to think of, okay, so the consequence strategies, what do I do when the behavior happens? And while that's really important and people have to have consistency there, like Shira said, a lot of it has to come down to what strategies or what behaviors are they missing, right? So that you think about can't do versus won't do. Like if they can't do it, if they don't have the means to communicate, they're going to engage in challenging behaviors. So your behavior plan can also include those antecedent strategies, or like I said, the proactive strategies, and try and teach those as much as possible, because oftentimes when you teach the pros, you don't necessarily need to have, or the behavior will disappear anyway because the student has these great replacement skills.
And sometimes that can still feel overwhelming because you're expecting the teacher or the staff to teach communication. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, they have, a whole classroom to manage and there's so many other things going on. So sometimes what I'll try to do is choose a routine in the day that is already happening that I could say, well, work on communication within snack or within recess and just pick those, 5 to 10 minute routine and work on that skill. And that feels a lot more manageable because we're picking a strategy that they're really in a routine they're already doing. And that really helps make it feel more doable. The teacher won't feel as overwhelmed as this is going to happen all day, every day. And how's that going to work? But picking a way to make it work. And then they can also see a little bit of progress because you can take a little bit of data for 5 to 10 minutes. So we could take data on communication during snack and we can see, wow, this is, really, really improving or it's really changing or it's not. And it just feels a lot more manageable.
One thing that I really had to learn early on was that a good enough plan, not a perfect plan, but a good enough plan that's used consistently is way better than a perfect one that no one touches. And that can be hard. I'm a perfectionist sometimes, so it can be really hard for me just to go, well, but we also have to remember that this behavior plan is a working document. So when you put this on paper or you've written it, it doesn't mean that it's stagnant then. It doesn't need to be like that the whole time. So, have one, 2 to 3 actionable goals, like Shira said. Sometimes I even just focus in on one thing. And then when you've got that one thing, you can change the behavior plan. Like Shira mentioned before, it's all about shaping. We talk about shaping students' behavior. We're also shaping parents' behavior, teachers' behavior, therapists' behavior. So, putting into place something that is good enough, we can change it over time and we can shape it into the plan we want it to be, but keep it simple.
And we talk a lot about buy-in. And what that really means is, imagine you're rowing a boat and you're rowing a boat maybe upstream or against a current because you're going against what has already been happening. And so us as the BCBAs are rowing on one side and we're trying really, really hard, but we need the person on the other side to be rowing along with us because what happens if they're rowing in a different direction against a current, you're just going to spin in circles. As strong as you are as a rower, as strong as, is that even a word, a rower, a
Yes,
paddler?
it is.
As strong as you are as the BCBA, you could have the best plan, but without that partner rowing alongside you, you're not gonna, fight against that inertia of the thing that's already been happening. And so that's really why buy-in is so important. And, coming in as the BCBA and just presenting a plan as that this is, the law, this is what I said will really almost never work. And I think the first thing, like Jana said earlier, is before you even write any plan, talk to them about their goals, their values, and their input, and adjust your plan based on their input. If it's really important to them that the student is able to transition independently down the hall because that's a big challenge in their classroom, then that might be a priority that you put into your behavior plan. And it should develop with their input as opposed to presenting them with just this finished plan before they've even had time to give that input.
That input is so valuable. And just even taking the time to listen to teachers, parents, group home staff, therapists, their frustrations, their fears, that really does help and show that you're supportive. Oftentimes, we'll come in as the hired consultant and we don't know. I mean, we've met the student once, maybe we've met them a handful of times, but we really don't know the student. Meanwhile, the teacher's in the classroom with them every single day, or the parent is with them all the time. So, how do we define ourselves as the experts and say, here, take this perfect plan and use it because I know best? You can't. So, by asking, asking for input, you're telling them that you're valuing their input. You're telling them, listen, like you know them way better than I know them. So, you tell me what you think is going to work and what you think is doable. And we can guide some of their decisions, and they can say, well, I know that, when I do this, it works every single time. And, that that's not a behavioral strategy. That, that really doesn't work. Like when I yell at them and I use a stern voice, it works every single time. As a behavior therapist, that's wrong, essentially. But you can shape their decision. Oh, that may work for you, but I've heard feedback from parents it doesn't work. We all need to get on the same page. Let's try something different. Or, hey, that's really great that that works for you in the moment, but the fact that that behavior is coming back over time is telling me that it doesn't work for future occurrences. So let's come up with something else. Have you ever thought about this? And you can guide that decision that way so that you're hearing them, they're giving input, but what they're saying, if it's, not in line with behavioral principles, we can shape and we can change.
Yeah, I think you're saying that, sometimes people just want to be heard, especially when they're the ones on the front line of managing that behavior. And
Yeah.
it's frustrating, it's hard, it's very challenging. And so sometimes the things that they're saying, you may not agree with, but that's not the point. They are part of this partnership. And so making everybody feel heard and then finding a way to frame the plan, not as like, I have the solution and you will follow the steps that I'm giving you, but I want to help make your life easier. Like I've heard how frustrating it is, and I've heard how hard this is. Let's try something that will help you feel safe and make transitions easier for you. And reminding them that the goal is not necessarily to just like end all behaviors, because that's just not possible most of the time. But our goal is to make it easier for them over time, make their job a little bit easier, and also teach some skills so that when those behaviors do happen, they're better prepared for them.
And if you were to end all behavior, Sherry, you'd be dead.
Yeah.
Dead man can do it. It's not behavior, ending all challenging behavior, right? The other thing you need to do is celebrate early successes. Celebrate those small wins. So you know what? He went 5 minutes without engaging in challenging behavior. It used to only be 3 minutes. You guys are doing an amazing job. Wow. Did you notice that he walked into the classroom and he didn't do anything? He just sat down in his seat. Wow, that's incredible. So those early wins, celebrate them, because when people see those results quickly, they're way more motivated to stick with the behavior plan.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the training on the behavior plan and giving that quick reference sheet, like a one pager. We also recommend using behavioral skills training. We have a whole nother episode on BST. It's episode 133, so check that out. But it's not enough to give people a piece of paper. Pieces of paper are not going to fix really anything in the world.
Neither is an email.
Right. So them seeing it in action, do modeling, try it for yourself, get to know the student. I think a lot of teachers feel like we come in and we may not even know what they're talking about. Like you've never seen my student before, you have no idea how hard it is, you've never met him, you don't know him. So get to know them, get in there, model, try something, have it not work, and then try something else. And I think there's a lot of buy-in there when you can model for the staff, then have them try the thing that, you found that did work, give the staff feedback, and make that ongoing. Like they should continue to get that reinforcement, even if it's your feedback at the beginning before it starts kicking in and the behavior start decreasing. Give them that encouragement and that feedback of the improvements that you're seeing, even in their behavior and the staff's behavior, even if the student's behavior isn't changing yet.
I think one of the most challenging things about being a consultant in a program is that you come in and you consult early on. You do the assessment, you come up with a behavior plan, you're talking to people, creating that buy-in, you do the behavior skills training, and then, you're out and that's it. But what we need to do is make other people realize that that ongoing training is so super important. So it's not just about doing this once and walking away and saying, yeah, I did my job. It's about finding that time and building that into a contract of I need to follow up and I need to provide some ongoing support, not only for, feedback and some more training, but also for encouragement, right? Like I said before, people need to know that they're doing a great job with certain things. And that's really how you build trust. And if you're available a little bit more often, you can build that trust and, be that supportive person.
So as a BCBA, it's a bit of a mindset shift. We're encouraging you to think about making imperfect plans choosing collaboration over perfection, incorporating other professionals in the plan. So instead of it feeling like it's my plan, it is our plan. How can we make this plan together to really create meaningful change? And that compassion for the staff as well as the students and the clients will really enhance effectiveness. It's not an option. We talk a lot about compliance with our learners and how we don't really enforce compliance, and we're choosing compassion with our learners. And it's really the same thing with the staff that we work with. We can't just give them a plan and expect compliance. We're working with them in collaboration and compassion to really enhance the effectiveness of the entire partnership and the plan.
For more information on behavior plan buy-in, click the link in and around this video or in the description to join our next Supervision CEU event. It's on Thursday, November 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Supervision that saves time, and it's presented by Adam Ventura, BCBA and owner of Introverbal AI. We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos, and leave a like and comment below if you have further questions.